What is up, everybody? This is the first episode of Keeping Up College Football. Look, I've dabbled in a couple of videos, but what I really wanted to do over here on YouTube is create hour-long shows where we dive into everything in college football, from Power 4 to G6 and everything in between. What we're going to be doing today is spring's over, so we get to look at my first and most likely only top 25 power rankings. Who would I favor against who on a neutral field now that spring ball's over? We're also going to look at which coaches are on the hot seat. There are a lot of coaches that I think are in their make it or break it year. And you saw teams a year ago really start to fire them early, which means if you don't get off to a hot start, no matter how big of a name you are, you might get fired. Next, there's 7 teams that I think are the clear-cut favorites to win a national championship. 7 teams that if you told me tomorrow that one of these teams win a national championship, I would not be the least bit surprised. We're going to dive into them, and we're going to look at their pros and their cons, their strengths and their weaknesses, and exactly what they need to do if they want to be the one to host the trophy at the end of the year. Also, there's been 2 huge debates on X and other social media platforms the last couple of weeks, and it's Big Ten versus SEC and 2014 playoff. We're going to dive into my opinion on both of them, as well as what teams can be conference shockers this year. You see it every year, the team that nobody is counting on to be good, and then they end up winning a couple games. Maybe they have an easy schedule, and they wind up in the conversation for a conference championship, and nobody would have ever guessed. Everyone also has been asking for on TikTok my G6 rankings. They're finally out. I said once school's over, I'd dive into the G6. Well, school's over. I've dove into the G6. I have a 25 teams list for my G6 rankings. Also, for every show that I ever do, I'm a North Dakota State fan. We got to finish it out with the North Dakota State segment. And the big news from the past week is NDSU is now a team that can officially go bowling. Huge news for NDSU. So first, post-spring top 25. Top 7 teams, right? Those are the teams that I think will compete for a national championship. We'll talk about them here in a little bit down the road. Everyone else, right? Some people are going to go, why is Alabama and LSU not on that list? One, LSU has too many question marks right now. Just point blank, period. Yes, I think they have 2 of the best coordinators in the country, in Baker and Charlie Weiss. Yes, the transfer portal looks amazing. They were also a top 10 team a year ago preseason, and they fell off a cliff. They didn't look very good at all. I need to see LSU put it all together before I'm willing to put them into that true national title conversation. Same thing with Alabama. Their inability to run the ball scares me a ton. Texas Tech is still at 9. This is even after the Sorsby drama. Yes, I understand he's not going to play. That news came out in April, which is a huge deal. If that happened in August and all of a sudden Texas Tech's searching for a quarterback, I'd be a lot more worried. They have a handful of months now to pick this out. Texas Tech's schedule is not all that hard. They'll be okay. 2 other teams that I've been told are very overrated in this top 25 is BYU and Utah. And what I'm going to tell you about those 2 teams, I trust the coaching staffs. To be completely honest with you, especially BYU's. Returning coach, returning quarterback, returning so many pieces. Yes, Parker Kingston's not going to be there, and that sucks. I wish he could. But he made some poor decisions. He's not going to be on BYU. I still think BYU is going to be fine. When you look at Utah, you go, well, how do you trust that staff? Because they've been planning forever. Kyle Whittingham, it was not brand new news that guy was not going to be the coach there much longer. He's 66, right? And now he's at Michigan. But Utah will be fine. We look down the list a little bit farther. Ole Miss, a lot of people want them so much higher. My big thing, and this will cover Texas A&M as well, when you lose a really, really good offensive coordinator, it's hard to just make that up. Charlie Weiss and Colin Klein were 2 offensive coordinators that I think are great. It's not all that hard to get a good offensive coordinator. It's really, really hard to get a good to great one. And I think that's what both of those were. They've both now moved on. I think that will hurt, one, the quarterback play at both those schools a lot, but overall the entire flow to the offense. I think both teams are still good enough to be top 15 type power rankings teams. And particularly when you look at Ole Miss, like LSU, Ole Miss. Ole Miss gets that game at home. And to be honest with you, it's going to just mean more for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss could win a game like that. And then all of a sudden, Ole Miss is still in that college football playoff conversation. Looking down the road from 16 to 20, those are kind of the teams that I would not be shocked if any 5 of them honestly made the college football playoffs. The Big 12 was the Sorsby thing, I think, is a lot more open than it was beforehand. I think Houston is probably the biggest dark horse in these 5, but I do think they could mess around, end up in the Big 12, and happen to win the championship. But for the other 4, I think they have legitimate reason to be optimistic that they can make a college football playoff. When you look at Louisville, particularly, they're in my college football playoff at the end of the year. I think that team's 11-1. When you look at what they've did offensively, Lincoln is going to be a good quarterback. I have no doubt in my mind with the way that he has shown by the people that have invested time in him. And what I mean by that is the people that recruited him out of high school and now the people that wanted him in the portal. The people that recruited him out of high school is Kalen DeBoer at Washington, North Dakota State, who's put 5 quarterbacks now in the NFL, and Ohio State. I'm going to trust those guys that they can analyze talent and understand a quarterback's character. I think Lincoln's going to be really, really good at Louisville. For Michigan, they've got some question marks at quarterback. Bryce Underwood, if he's good, this is a college football playoff team. I don't think he is all that good. I hate to say that. I wish him nothing but success, but I don't think he's going to be all that great next year. And when you look at that schedule, if they want to make the college football playoffs, they're going to need to beat 2 probably top 12 teams. It's going to be really hard if you don't have elite level quarterback play. Maybe you can do what you did a couple years against Ohio State. Win the turnover battle, play keep away, and you end up in a good position. But I'm not willing to bet on that. Washington, I like them a lot, plus the schedule. And Iowa is another team that's just a quarterback away. If they had a good quarterback with the schedule that they got, they'd most likely be a playoff team. When you look at those final 5 teams, SMU, I think, is very consistent. They've been very consistent over the last couple of years. They are, in my opinion, a 9-ish win team. Penn State returning, well, not returning, but getting Rocco Becht returning with the staff, essentially. It's now just the Penn State Cyclones. They're going to be good, and they have a lot of experience. And plus, once again, very easy schedule. USC, a lot of people want them much, much higher than I have them at 23. Defense worries me too much. If their defense is not elite, I struggle to believe that that offense is going to be one of the elite Lincoln Riley ones that can just make up for a bad defense. With that being said, Gary Patterson's in town, and there's reason to be optimistic. I'm just not that optimistic. With Lincoln Riley, it's a lot like Josh Heupel and his defense at Tennessee right now, who you will notice is not on the list. We'll get to them in a second. Until I see it, I'm going to fail to believe it, if I'm being honest. Missouri, I got at 24. I like the roster. Ahmad Hardy's one of the best backs in the country. It came out literally yesterday that he got shot. I wish him nothing but a speedy recovery. I hope he's all good in life, and then we can start worrying about college football. Missouri might drop off a little bit if he's unavailable. And then for South Carolina, they have any given day the best player on offense and the best player on defense. They are a top 25 power rated team. Now the coaching staff has to be good enough. And if they are, they can mess around and win some games and really be competitive in the SEC. Now that the top 25 is done, let's go look at which coaches are going to be on the hot seat. And we're going to start with Mike Norvell. This is a guy who was on the doorstep of a college football playoff. Many argue that he ended up getting screwed, but then the entire team sat out and then got blown out from Georgia. The team's not been the same since. And when you look at what he's did, it almost looks like a bell curve, which is not what you're looking for when you're looking for coaching development. He started off by taking a Florida State team that wasn't all that talented and did not all that talented things with them, but he built them at a very high level. You can thank Jordan Travis a lot for that. But since he's been gone, Florida State's been really bad. And they are not in a great conference right now. The ACC is not one of the most competitive conferences in college football. You have Miami, but Clemson's on the down. Virginia Tech's on the down. SMU has been fine, but SMU should not necessarily be one of the second best teams in the conference year in, year out. Florida State needs to be better. They haven't been. And if they don't get better quickly, I think Mike Norvell is out the door. Things that are saving him is a massive buyout over his head. And also, who would Florida State go get? I think there's some good guys at the G6 ranks in terms of head coaches that like Midwestern schools can go out and get. And we'll talk about one of them here in a second. But not really for Florida State. I don't know who would take his job if he ends up going. But Mike Norvell is certainly on the hot seat. I could very easily see him getting fired this year. Next, we're talking Luke Fickell. This is another guy who he had, honestly, a kind of shocking end of the season a year ago. But 5-7 and 4-8 is not good enough. And when he took the job over at Wisconsin fired a guy because he basically couldn't bring them to the next level. And you've seen this happen time and time again in college football. Nebraska's a prime example. When they fired Bo Pelini. Grass is now greener on the other side. It's not been green for Luke Fickell. This guy was a great coach at Cincinnati. I don't know what happened at Wisconsin, but it's not been good. But in good news, their schedule is really easy this year. They are a team that I think could be in the below half of the Big Ten talent-wise or power rankings-wise and end up being a team that probably goes 7-5 or 8-4. The bad news for Luke Fickell, there's 2 really good coaches in the Mountain West that I think are perfect candidates for this Wisconsin job. Perfect candidates. And number 1, that's going to be Jason Eck. The rebuilding job that he's did at New Mexico is elite. And I think he's, first of all, played at Wisconsin. Second of all, Wisconsin through and through. And he's a guy who I don't think Wisconsin could turn down, and I think they'd rather have him tomorrow if that option was given. The problem is there's like $34 million sitting on Luke Fickell's head to tell him to be done being a coach, which is really hard for a program like Wisconsin. It's really hard for any program. Wisconsin could bounce back this year. Luke Fickell could win 8-9 games, and maybe Wisconsin's even on the doorstep of a Big Ten title with how easy that schedule is. But if things don't go good, there's good options. And the other good option was Tim Polasek from NDSU. I think he makes tons of sense as well. Once again, a Wisconsin guy through and through. He's coached in the Big Ten at somewhere like Iowa. He's been a position coach. It would make tons of sense for him to take that next step, especially if NDSU has a year that some people think they'll have, and we will once again get to that later. The third coach that I have at least kind of on the hot seat, and this one I'd say is the biggest stretch, and it's Lincoln Riley. At some point, he's got to take the next step. When you look at what he did at Oklahoma and what USC bought when they took him from Oklahoma, they took a coach that was a perennial college football playoff contender, borderline, should have won a couple playoff games in there. He's came to USC, it's been a failure. It's been a failure through 4 years. 11-3 was fine. 8-5 with a returning Heisman winner is not good enough. 7-6 is not good enough. 9-4 is fine, but when you look at everything they had, you can't do that. It didn't help that they ended up moving to the Big Ten, 2 years into his reign as head coach. The good news for USC, or I guess for Lincoln Riley, I don't know who USC would go with if they end up firing Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley has tons of money over his head as well. But when you look at how much they spent this season and went out and got kids in the portal and went out and brought in recruiting classes and retained as much production as they did, you got to feel like a college football playoff berth needs to be in this team's future. And if it's not, I think Lincoln Riley is going to have some question marks over his head. He's went out now for like the fourth time in his career and got that defensive coordinator in Gary Patterson, returning his quarterback. It's do or die right now for USC. It's do or die right now for Lincoln Riley. And bad news for him is he plays the three best teams in the Big Ten. I think he has to go 1-2 against, that is Indiana, that is Ohio State, and that is Oregon. If he doesn't do that, if he wins every game, you can't fire a guy for going 9-3, but there's going to be tough conversation to be had in Southern Cal if Lincoln Riley does not get it together a little bit more. Okay, next part. What are the teams that can win the national championship in 2027? I got 7 of them. They're Notre Dame, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Oregon, Miami, and Texas. Right now, in my opinion, I think Georgia's the preseason national title favorite because I can trust Kirby Smart. In the last couple of years, they've gotten a little screwed in terms of the playoffs. You just watched Trinidad Chambliss have the game of his life. 2 years ago, Gunnar Stockton was starting in his first game ever. So, we'll preface the conversation by that. But let's start off with Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost Jeremiah Love, but I think pretty much everything else on that team got better. The offensive line a year ago was really, really young, which means now they're more experienced. They're still remarkably talented. And you can say the same thing about the quarterback, CJ Carr. People have asked me on TikTok Live, is he a Heisman guy? In my opinion, no. I don't think they're going to have the counting stats to win the Heisman, especially not with that schedule. But with all that being said, he's going to be a really good quarterback. And a lot of people judge him on his, 2 out of his first 3 starts against A&M and against Miami. It's unfair. But he's going to be good next year. The defense, I have tons of faith in. That secondary looks so good. I trust the defensive line. And Marcus Freeman's a really good coach. And that's what you notice about pretty much all these coaches up on this list. They're all guys that have knocked on the door of a national title. Another team that I think's a national title, at least consideration, is Ohio State. People are going to look at my power rankings and go, well, you have them 6, and you're going to hate that. Well, you lose your 3 best players on defense. And a year ago, they didn't do the little things right at all. And what I mean by that is, go rewatch the Miami game. There were some missed blocks, particularly by Jeremiah Smith on that wide receiver screen that ended up costing them a pick 6 and most likely the game. Little things like that matter, especially when you play the schedule that Ohio State's going to play, and especially when you're in the national title conversation. You have to do the little things right. The good news for Ohio State is they're going to be more tested this year, and I think that's going to help them. And I've said from the very beginning, if this team goes 9-3, I think they win the national championship. I think they'd have enough wins to get into the playoffs, and I think they'd be battle-tested enough to win it all. Now let's take a look at Indiana. Okay, they lost a ton. There's no doubt. Cignetti has also lost 2 games in 2 years. In my opinion, he's the best coach in college football. Cignetti has transformed Indiana to a year-in, year-out competitor. Nick Marsh is one of the best wide receivers in college football. Learn the name. Carter Smith, that tackle's great. Jake Burner is going to be next to him at left guard. Brunner, I'm blanking on the name. It's one of the 2. They also have Charlie Becker coming back. The running back room should be really good. They do lose some pieces there. I trust the defense. They have one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Indiana's still going to win a national championship. They're still going to be elite. There's no question. I see some people predicting an Indiana fall off. I just don't see that until Cignetti leaves. Okay, next, look at Georgia. I said they're my preseason favorite. I love so much of that roster. I love the offensive line. I think Nate Frazier's a top 5-ish running back. If he's not 5, he's really, really close. I think Gunnar Stockton proved a year ago in the playoffs that he's a big-time player. The guy makes plays when it matters most. Now, granted, is he the most consistent all the time? No. But he always seems to make the plays, which is what I care about in a team that I need to see win a national championship to be right. I look at the defense. It's a Georgia defense. Is it a 2022 Georgia defense? No. But it is still an elite Georgia defense nonetheless. But what's the big question mark? Wide receiver. There is no one guy right now that I can look at and go, bang, that guy's elite. Just, I can't. It's my big worry for this team. I don't think Zachariah Branch necessarily was the answer a year ago either. I think you need somebody a little bit better than him. Not saying he was bad, or maybe you just need more talent around him. That's for Kirby Smart to figure out. The good news, this team has some of the best recruiting in the country. I believe that there's talented, fast, athletic wide receivers in that building, and I believe that they can get the most out of them. I think Georgia's going to win the national championship, and I certainly think they're in consideration. Oregon and Texas. We're going to group these two together, but we'll talk about them separately as well. Okay, both these teams, everybody says they can't win a national championship. Everybody says they're remarkably overrated. Well, here's what I'll tell you. They are the two most talented rosters in college football right now, point blank period. We'll start with Oregon because that's who I rated number 1. Returning quarterback, wide receivers when they're healthy is one of the deepest rooms in the country. An offensive line, they lost 3 starters, but, and this is a big but, they were so injury prone a year ago, which means most of those guys have played at least some role. I'm not worried about the offensive line continuity at all. You also have a full offseason to kind of find out your 5, which Oregon never really had a year ago. I look at the running back room. They were so hurt in the postseason a year ago. There was a freshman a year ago. Now he's a sophomore. I'm blanking on the name. That dude was supposed to be a beast. Many said he was the best running back in that room a year ago. He didn't get a ton of carries, but he's going to be the guy next year, and I think he's going to be a star. When you turn to that defense, tons and tons of talent on the defensive line. It's Oregon. What do you expect? But that secondary is sneakily the best in the country, in my opinion. I think there's a team in Tuscaloosa that would argue that. But when you look at Finney, when you look at Parrish from Minnesota at safety, I don't see a better unit in the country. I really don't. And I think they showed that at times a year ago. For Texas now, Arch Manning's entering year 2. Cam Coleman, who is a first-round draft pick wide receiver, bar down. He's now there. Hollywood Smothers is now there. Sawani from Wake Forest is now at Texas. That's one of the best offenses in the country. It's led by Steve Sarkisian, a really good play caller. You look at the defense. Brought in Biles from Pitt. Colin Simmons is still there. The rest of the room is loaded with talent, and Will Muschamp is now the defensive coordinator. I love the situation. And I'm not saying it's complete championship or bust at Texas, but it's championship or bust. That team's good enough to win the national title. Finally, Miami, I have them at 7. A lot of people really dislike that. Okay, what do they lose, and then what do they get? They lose, obviously, Carson Beck. They bring in Darian Mensah. A lot of people want to just go in and, well, he's better. Darian Mensah is just better than Carson Beck. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Darian Mensah is a great player. Go watch the UConn game where he lost at Duke. He struggled a lot through 2 interceptions, bad loss to a G6 school. He's been inconsistent throughout his career. Now, he has the potential to lock in and really win a Heisman. Like, there's no doubt. And maybe he has a trajectory similar to Cam Ward where he gets in the system and Mario Cristobal's a genius. That could happen. But there's still some question marks there for me. Wide receiver, running back, yeah, no question marks at all. Mark Fletcher, Malachi Toney, elite. Offensive line, young at tackle. They're going to start the freshman. But he's really good. He's really talented. I think if he wasn't really good, they'd have somebody else playing at his position. So I'm not too worried about that at all. Then defense. Okay. You're getting Coleman from Missouri. Great get. But you do lose Mesidor. You do lose Bain. You lose your safety too. Some really physical pieces. I'm not too worried because I think I always said Miami was the most violent team defensively a year ago, and I mean that in the best way possible. They were really, really, really good at hitting you really, really hard. It's what I loved about the Miami defense. I think that's a culture thing. I think the culture is staying there. I think Mario Cristobal is one of the best head coaches in the country right now. Miami will be fine. They are certainly a team that can win the national championship. But I do have a little more questions about them than I do some other teams, particularly up front on the defensive line, which you need if you want to win a national championship. Because you saw, like, against Ole Miss a year ago, those Mesidor and Bain just won. And it was one of the huge reasons why Miami was able to win that game. So some question marks for Miami. But these are my 7 teams that I think could win a national championship. I think these are the 7 that have the best shot and have the most amount of talent. Next up, this is a conversation that needs to be had, but I hate having it. It's the SEC versus the Big Ten. And there's a lot of people with very emotional decisions about which team do you like more. A lot of it comes down to where you grew up. Did you grow up in the South or did you grow up in the Midwest loving the Big Ten? And what I can tell you right now is I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. I love the SEC. I love going to games in the SEC. I've gone to an Iron Bowl. I've been to Death Valley. I've been to Williams-Brice Stadium. It's awesome. I love the SEC. The Big Ten has better football right now. Point blank period. Top to bottom. So we'll start at the top because that's what everybody wants to talk about. 3 straight national championships for the Big Ten. Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio State. There's no arguing that. Yes, Georgia won the 2 before that, but it's a new era in college football, and right now the Big Ten's dominating it. But it's not just that. When you look at even the top levels, not necessarily the national title conversation, but the top, you see Ohio State beating Texas, right? What's the SEC's response going to be to that? Because it's now or never for the SEC if they can go back and win another national championship because they've not won one in some time, and they've had teams good enough to do it. And my problem with the SEC right now, especially at the top, it's Georgia. It's nobody else right now. In terms of teams that have consistently showed up in big moments, Georgia's held their own. Most of the other programs haven't. We're talking about Alabama really hasn't. Texas really hasn't. Oklahoma really hasn't. Florida's not been good. Auburn's not been good. And those are teams that you really need to rely on to be near the top of the conference. LSU is another one of those teams that's just really not held their own. And when LSU's 7-6, it's going to be pretty hard for the SEC to produce, 2 or 3 national title contenders. And when there's more playoff teams, it gives more opportunities for those SEC teams to lose. And you've seen that. And you've seen the way that they've got hurt late in the year. Maybe it's because of that gauntlet of a schedule that everybody wants to talk about. And it might be. But at the same time, this conference still has the most NFL draft picks in the SEC. And the coaching staffs are just not getting the most out of it. And they're not showing up in the big time moments. But I say it's not just the top because I don't believe it is. I think the SEC versus Big Ten right now is top to bottom. And what I mean by that is a year ago, Alabama lost by 14 points to a bad Florida State team. That Alabama team had tons of success against SEC teams and then got their doors blown off of them by Indiana. And Indiana's a great team, but Indiana almost lost to Iowa and Penn State at the same time. Okay, so that Indiana team was great, but they weren't unbeatable, and Alabama made them look unbeatable with how bad they played. And Alabama did very well in SEC play. But it's not just Alabama in these type of games. You look at Arkansas. I show the graphic on the screen right now. They had an 18-point lead against Memphis, and they lost it. That's an Arkansas team that played A&M really close, played pretty much every team on their schedule really close, had a lot of those NFL draft picks everyone loves to talk about. But when you look at the non-con, they lost to Memphis and got blown out by Notre Dame. So what am I supposed to make of that? One of those teams that is supposed to be a bottom feeder in your conference is playing everyone close. And then we get to the bowl conversation, and the SEC loves to say, well, my players sit out. That's cool. It must not mean as much. But like the truth of the matter is you're getting blown out in these games. Particularly Iowa Vanderbilt is just one that instantly comes to mind. Missouri has picked up some bad losses, like to Virginia. That was just one you really can't even explain. So then you move to the playoffs, and it was much of the similar story. You watch Alabama get routed. Ole Miss put up a great fight against Miami, but Miami ended up beating them. So you really can't give Ole Miss too much credit. And Ole Miss is not one of those teams in the SEC that's supposed to hold their own at the top. And when you look at the Big Ten, we're talking about a conference that consistently is putting teams in the semifinals, consistently having multiple teams that you could look and you're like, that's a true national title contender. Even 2 years ago, you look at Penn State and Ohio State were both in the semifinals. A year ago, you look at Oregon and Indiana, both in the semifinals. I think the Big Ten is a better top-to-bottom conference right now. And you can look at the very bottom. Yes, there's some bad teams in the Big Ten, but there's also some bad teams in the SEC. Like, imagine if Purdue lost to Memphis. Imagine how much crap the Big Ten would get from that. Arkansas lost to Memphis. That's pretty inexcusable. You also look at like Kentucky. Like, Kentucky's playing MAC teams close and then almost beating Texas 2 weeks later, almost beating Georgia 2 weeks later. I don't want to hear how tough your schedules are when I watch Kentucky and Arkansas play G5 teams and struggle. So that's kind of my thing about the SEC and Big Ten argument. But my question is not who's the best conference. What I care more about is why. And my why is coaching. The coaching that the SEC had in the late 2000s or early 2010s was remarkable. I mean, we're talking about Steve Spurrier at South Carolina. We're talking about Urban Meyer at Florida. We're talking about Les Miles at LSU. We're talking about Saban at Alabama. The coaching's not there right now in the SEC, and it's pretty clear. Steve Sarkisian's a good coach. He's not Urban Meyer. Kalen DeBoer's a good coach. He's not Les Miles. And even when you look at like a program like Mississippi State, right? They had Dan Mullen at, honestly, so far the peak in his career, had Mississippi State one of the best teams in the country. It's not there right now. You had a good Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. He goes to Auburn and struggles a ton. But the coaching's not there right now in the SEC. It's not there top to bottom. And you can sit there. I'll add a caveat to that. Kirby Smart's one of the two best coaches in America. I think Cignetti's better personally. If you think it's Kirby Smart, there's not too much debate on that for me. You know, it's how many years have you did it versus how quickly have you did it. That's really the argument. And my argument is Cignetti's won a championship within 2 years at the worst program in the history of college football. But I digress. Top to bottom, the Big Ten just has better coaches right now than the SEC. And you can go to the Big Ten and you can even look like Matt Campbell is a solid head coach. James Franklin, when he was in the Big Ten, was a very solid head coach. And Ryan Day gets a ton of crap. The guy's won a national championship. Dan Lanning gets a ton of crap for losing playoff games. The guy's won a Big Ten title and been very competitive and beat good teams in the non-con. He just doesn't have the playoff wins quite yet to show for it. But you also look at like a Ferentz at Iowa. He's been a really good coach for a really long time. PJ Fleck has made Minnesota respectable. You know, David Braun's making the Northwestern respectable, making them a bowl team most years. So you've seen the coaching. It's better right now in the Big Ten than it is in the SEC. Point blank, period. Okay, the next big argument that's been had on X. What to be made of a 24-team playoff versus a 12-team playoff? What do I want? What do I think is better for the future of college football? And this might be a very long segment. I'm not going to lie. So, for the 12-team playoff, in my opinion, it's a little bit too much. Anyways, I wanted an 8-team playoff, but a 12-team playoff is fine. Okay, you get the G5 bid. I like that there's no longer the best, highest-rated 5 conference champions. That was really dumb. I also dislike the Notre Dame rule. So there's flaws right now in the current system. Do not get me wrong. But losing in the regular season has to matter. And in a 12-team playoff, we can still kind of pretend that it does. There's still some games where I look at them and I'm just like, that didn't matter. In a 12-team playoff, conference championships, for anybody besides the Big 12 and the G6s, don't matter. You saw that a year ago. Alabama got humiliated against Georgia and Atlanta. Alabama didn't move. Georgia didn't move. What am I supposed to make of that? Texas Tech humiliated BYU. Texas Tech didn't go up. BYU didn't go down. So, like, conference championship games don't matter in the 12-team format, which I wish they did. I love conference championship games. Playing for a conference championship needs to be a symbol of pride in this sport, a pride that I am better than everybody in my conference, everybody that I play year in, year out. Doesn't really mean as much anymore in this 12-team format. As well as losses. Miami a year ago played in the national championship. In my perfect world, they never would have made the playoffs. Because I don't think they had a good... I do not think that for the first, 12 weeks of the year, they proved that they deserved a shot at the national championship. You cannot lose the games that they lost to Louisville and SMU and tell me that you deserve an opportunity to play for a national championship. And that's the big disconnect that I have with a lot of people. A lot of people look and go, another round means more games. Yay, college football. Yes, you're not wrong, but you're devaluing so many other games. The Iron Bowl is another good example a year ago. In a 20-team, 14 playoff, if Auburn would have beat Alabama, like, shucks, they lost it in the Iron Bowl. But it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of can you win a national championship. And nowadays, that's what you're graded on. You're not graded on can you win your conference, at least at not those top-end jobs. You're graded on can you win a national championship. So, why do I hate the 2014 playoffs so much? And I do. I will be very open about it. The regular season will hold such little value now. And a lot of people want to say, Okay, but more teams, get the opportunity to play. That's awesome. If these guys were 12. They're not. They're college athletes. They get paid a lot of money to play this sport. The thing that made college football so must watch to me is the playoffs started in August, especially in the BCS or the 4-team playoff. You could not afford a loss. You couldn't. And there were flaws. Florida State's a prime example when they missed the playoffs, or TCU when Ohio State kicked them out. And there's flaws, and I will fully admit that. And that's why I think the expansion to 12 was a good idea. But 24? We're letting, 1/6 of the sport, including the G6 and Power 4 in the college football playoffs now? And when you look at, okay, what would the 2014 bracket look like last year? Cincinnati's in the playoffs, right? Virginia's in the playoffs. I disagree with that. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. My thing is yes, a 2014 playoff is cool, and NCAA 27. It would be cool to be like, oh my God, look at this huge playoff format. Look at there's 68 teams. That's sick. But the reality is there's cons to that too. I don't think the cons are being looked at enough. And why do people want this? And this is what it all comes back to for me. People want this because they can make more money. That's why you see these conference commissioners pushing for it. It's not because they have the betterment of the sport in mind. No. It's because they know if they play one more round of the playoffs, more people would watch. Because it's closer to the NFL. Because it's closer to every other postseason format. But what made college football's regular season so special is that the playoff format was so different. The fact that it was so coveted to get a playoff spot. And at 24 teams, we're letting damn near half the SEC in. And I don't think that's a good idea. And if you are, and this is for the people on X that I keep seeing. I'm a North Dakota State fan. We'll get to North Dakota State, as I said later. If you think for 1 second that they will let us into the college football playoffs over the 8th best SEC team, you're out your damn minds. Point blank, period. And I mean that to the 4th best team in the Big 12. I mean that to the 3rd best team in the Big 12. If you think they're doing this for you, you're lying to yourself. I don't care where you would have been rated in these fake 2014 college football playoff mock brackets. That's not the case. They're not doing this for you. They're not. Would have BYU and Utah got in last year? Probably. Would have the 4th best Big 12 team? No. They would have put in Texas. They would have put in, I'm trying to think of who was slightly worse in the SEC. Hell, they might have put in Missouri. They're not doing this for you. They're doing this to get more of their teams who played such brutal schedules, who played such hard non-conference games. That's why they're doing this, because they want to put more of those teams into the college football playoffs. They are not doing this for you. And the problem is people think that they're doing it for their program. I keep seeing Iowa State fans on X. Yes, let's move to the playoffs so we can get invited. No. It's a terrible idea. It's not going to work, and it's not sustainable at all. And the other thing, and the other group of people that are really on board for this are NFL fans who just come and watch college football. Respectfully, if the only time you watch college football, or the main reason you watch college football, is to see guys before they enter the NFL, I do not care about your opinion about how big our playoff format should be. I don't. I think it doesn't matter. I care about the people who have been Ole Miss fans for 20 years and love watching their team when they're 3-9 because they get to go to the Grove and hang out with their family. That's the people that I care about what they think of college football. And those people do not want a 24-team playoff. They want a 12-team playoff because they can logically think. The good news that I think would come with college football 2014 playoff is I do think there'd be more home games, which I'm a huge fan and advocate for. I want to see as many home college football playoff games as humanly possible, but that could be done in the 12-team format. You do not need to expand it to 24. So, to recap, why does everybody else want a 2014 playoff? Because they're paid by ESPN or Fox or CBS, right? Because they think that they'll also get broadcasting games. If you are a fan of we'll call it mid-major 2, aka the ACC and the Big 12, or the G6, and you think that they are doing this to get more of your teams in, they're playing you. I promise you. And 3 conference championship games are pretty much null and void if this does end up happening and we do move to 24 teams, because there's no point for them. There's no point for them, honestly, even at the G6 level. And if we do talk 24-team playoff, we're also talking about destroying the bowl system, which, honest to God, I'm fine with. I think we're ending up talking about a G6 playoff. There's certain ways that would work, and maybe that's a segment for another time in terms of how I would integrate a G6 playoff with the college football playoff, so the G6 still gets a nominee, but that team also still gets to play in the G6 playoff. There's a video on my TikTok if you want to go watch it. You'll probably have to go back a little ways, where I kind of break down what I think that could potentially look like. But yeah, overall, 24-team playoffs is a horrible idea. I pray to God people like Josh Pate get what they want in terms of keeping a 12-team playoff. The guy's wrong about some things. The guy's right about some things. I think he's right about a 12-team playoff. Big time. Okay, back to positivity. That's what we're all here for in college football. Who are my conference sleepers? Who are the teams that could mess around and compete in their conference? And the first team that I have is TCU. Okay. You start off, you play North Carolina. When you overall just kind of look at the schedule, I look at BYU, I look at Utah, and I look at Texas Tech. Those are the three best teams in the Big 12. So you're going to think, why is this team a conference sleeper for you? And I have it right here on my sheet. Sonny Dykes, since he took over at TCU, is 36-17, and he has the most wins in the Big 12 over the last 4 years. They have a really good coaching staff. Jaden Craig's coming over from Harvard. That's one of the best transfers in the country. I'm trying to tell anybody who will listen that guy could legitimately lead you to a Big 12 championship. He is that good. He can take over football games. He has good enough athleticism. He has a great arm. He's really good in the RPO and the play action game. TCU is going to be scary. They're returning a lot of production. I know McAllister's gone. He went to the NFL. They're returning a lot of production on that defense as well and on that offense. I think TCU is going to be really, really good. I have them upsetting BYU. I do have them losing, though, to Utah and Texas Tech. I think they win one of those 3 games is kind of what I'm getting at. I think TCU is going to be a really, really good team next year. They are a sleeper for me in the Big 12. I don't know if they'll win the conference, but I certainly think they'll be competitive. My next sleeper is South Carolina. This is another team that I've been harping on all offseason, anybody who will listen. And people tell me, a year ago they were 4-8. A year ago they were really bad. You want to know what? You're completely right. This team was awful a year ago. The good news is it wasn't last season. And you could pinpoint pretty much all their struggles to 2 things. Here, give me a sec. I need some water. But offensive line and offensive coordinator. Wasn't good enough. Defense was fine. Wide receivers were fine. Quarterback's pretty darn good. So what's the recipe next year for South Carolina? Another team with just a gauntlet of a schedule. You got Georgia, you got A&M, you got Oklahoma, you got Alabama. The keys are very simple. Jacarius Peaks is an all-American offensive tackle like I think he's going to be. Lenoris Sellers finally has a run game to help him with, partly because I think that offensive line will be such improved. And then those wide receivers, particularly Nick Harbor, who's freakishly athletic, and some of those other guys, they finally step up and they're more consistent route runners and they catch the ball more often. And they have better play calling all around. If this team has a offense next year, they might be 9-3. They might be better. They might be a college football playoff team. And now let's look at that defense. They have arguably the best player in college football on the defensive side of the ball in Dylan Stewart. This guy is a top 5 pick. There's no question. And he might be a top 3 pick. He has that type of size, that type of explosiveness, that type of athleticism. And when you have a guy like that, and you've seen it the last 2 years at South Carolina, it makes the rest of the defensive line better. They also got some help at defensive tackle, which is big because although their pass rush was pretty good a year ago, their ability to stop the run was quite poor. That definitely needs to get better. I think the secondary is talented. I really do. I think the linebacker core, is solid. I think South Carolina's a really good team. I think with a new and improved offensive coordinator, they're going to be in a good position. With that being said, we had a hot seat segment earlier. Yeah, if this year goes bad with the blue chip ratio sitting at 52% like it is for South Carolina, 12th in the country, yeah, Shane Beamer's on the hot seat. There's no question. If this year does not go right, the reason why he wasn't on the hot seat conversation, I think he's going to do tremendous. And I think South Carolina's going to win a lot of games. For my final conference sleeper, I got Cal. First of all, first team that really benefits from schedule, right? You see SMU, you don't see Louisville, and you don't see Miami, which is huge. You also get Virginia Tech at home. Cal's a really good team. JKS is, in my opinion, somewhere between 10 and 15 in terms of quarterbacks in the entire country. He's a little inconsistent, but he's a really talented player. You bring in Adam Muhammad, the running back. He's a beast. You've got a new head coach, finally. Things that worry me about this team. Haven't won 8 games since 2009. That's really, really tough. But if that can get going and the head coaching situation gets right, I think Cal's going to be in a really good position. And I jotted this down too for myself. Cal added 32 transfers. I counted 23 of which were kids from other Power 4 universities. Some of which, of course, from Oregon, where Tosh was originally coaching at as the defense coordinator. Some of them not. But what that tells me is they're going to have talent, something that they really haven't had before. And I do love when people go kind of the Cignetti route and they go out and they get proven production. Excuse me. And I think that matters more than potential. For Cal, with the way they played a year ago and the kind of couple mini steps that I think they need to make before they can really get into that true ACC title conversation, they didn't need to reinvent the wheel. They needed to go get like 3 to 4 game records. The way you do that is you go get hyper athletic kids from other Power 4 institutions that you just don't think were developed properly. That's what Cal did. I really like the situation that Cal's at. Okay, next. It's been long awaited, actually, on the TikTok, surprisingly. Group of 6, top 25 power rankings. Who do I got making the college football playoffs? We'll start at the top. We'll go down to the bottom. At number 1, I think it's Dan Mullen and UNLV. I think they're the best G6 team right now, in my opinion. They also play Cal. They also get Cal at home. I think those two things both matter a ton in terms of what this UNLV team could be. There's some questions at quarterback. It's really either the freshman or Arnold. I think they're leaning towards the freshman, which I'm not exactly against. Dan Mullen at quarterback, I'm going to trust him. The team's got a lot of talent. They spend the money. UNLV is in position. I think they'll be the college football playoff bid. If not them, whom? Okay? Boise State's my easiest 2. I think right now it's UNLV 1A, UNLV 1A, Boise State 1B. Boise State's really good. They are a perennial G6 contender. They're now in the Pac-12, which I think will give them a little bit more room for air in terms of maybe they can pick up a couple losses, still make the playoffs. They have Oregon in the non-con. If they win that game, right? We're getting ahead of ourselves, but if they win that game, obviously, I think they really, truly control their own destiny. Big time. But even if they play them close like they did 2 years ago, when they had Ashton Genty, you play them close, and that also looks really good on the resume, and I could very well see Boise doing that. Second team in the Pac-12, I have San Diego State. I got them at 3 overall. I think they're a really solid team. They were kind of close to breaking through a year ago. I kind of think they do break through this year. I think they're the second best team in the Pac-12, and I do think the Pac-12 is the best G6 conference right now. James Madison, they're going to win the Sun Belt. Sun Belt Billy, first of all, great coach in the Sun Belt. Second of all, James Madison's the best program in the Sun Belt. It's not close. The teams that they were playing in the CAA arguably put up a better fight against James Madison than the Sun Belt has. Yes, the roster got gutted. They didn't win games by 10 points a year ago. They won them by 20 or 30. James Madison is a buzzsaw in the Sun Belt. They'll be great. Memphis, coach left. Not a big Silverfield fan. I think Memphis replaced him just fine. I got him at 5. I think they win the American. But I don't have a great read on any of the American teams. Tons of roster and coaching turnover in that conference. Leaves a lot to be unknown, at least. And you can kind of see that with the rankings and just how many American teams are on here, when I do think they're the second best conference in the G6. 6, I got New Mexico. I think they are also a team that very well could end up in that college football playoff conversation. They play Oklahoma. That's their Power 4 game. I don't necessarily see them winning that. We talked about Jason Eck earlier on this show when it came to who could replace Luke Fickell at Wisconsin if he ends up getting fired. The world where that happens is New Mexico is the 6th best G6 team, maybe even a little bit higher. That team competes for college football playoffs. We're talking late into November. Maybe they're in a Mountain West title game against UNLV. Winner goes to the college football playoffs. Something like that. They have a quarterback that I think is destined to break out here soon. New Mexico's a really good team. I got him at 6. USF, a team that a lot of people are going to want higher. Brian Hartline, my biggest worry about him, he's only ever coached at Ohio State. Ohio State is a job that is so different than any other job throughout all of college football. I think there's going to be a learning curve at USF. The roster also got gutted. Most of the good players are at Auburn. USF will still be good. I just don't think they'll necessarily be elite. UConn I kept at 8. I'm high on UConn. Look, you lost your coach. That worries me, but in an era of paying the players, UConn has money, and a lot of it. And I know a lot of it goes to basketball. I know football's not really their thing, but they're good enough to keep a competitive football team. I think that's what they have. We're going to start going a little bit quicker now for the rest of this list. Fresno, Matt Entz, can he take the next step at Fresno State? They were, I believe, a 3 or 4 loss team a year ago. Now they're moving to the Pac-12. I think the schedule gets harder. I still think they're in the top echelon of that conference. I got them at 3rd. But I don't necessarily know if they're a team that is talented enough to make it all the way to the college football playoffs. NDSU, I got them at 10. Once again, North Dakota State fan. We're going to be good. A year ago, I would have picked us, honest to God, to probably win the conference. We lost Cole Payton to the NFL. We lost Bryce Lance to the NFL. We lost Barika Penny to the NFL. We lost 2 other wide receivers. We lost offensive linemen to the transfer portal. We lost two starting cornerbacks. We lost a middle linebacker. Now, we brought in talent, and we've put, 5 straight quarterbacks. Shoot, I hope that did not cut out. We put 5 straight quarterbacks in the NFL. I really like what NDSU's got going on. With that being said, first year in the FCS, or in the FBS, they're going to be at 10. ECU, I got at 11. Caden Hauser's out the door. I still like the team. I still believe in the coaching staff. And with how gutted the American got, I think they're really going to step up. Looking at kind of the rest of this list, you're going to see Sac State's in there. I think Jacksonville State's going to win. The CUSA, I think they're the best team in the conference. I think them and NDSU week 0 actually should be a really intriguing game. Oregon State, Washington State, maybe a little bit lower than some people think. Same thing with Tulane and North Texas. Just don't really believe in the rosters right now. I don't think the coaches are necessarily incredible. It kind of got gutted talent-wise. If there'd be a dark horse on this list to make the college football playoffs, I'd say Hawaii is that. They have one of the better quarterbacks in the G6, and they're certainly a team that could mess around and end up being in that conversation. So that's kind of what I got for the G6 top 25. Take of it as you will. A lot of unknown with how much roster turnover and coaching turnover there is in the G6. Finally, my favorite segment and the best segment of all, the North Dakota State segment. NDSU's going bowling. It was announced by Ross Dillinger earlier last week that NDSU's, the waiver that NDSU happened to support got accepted. NDSU will be bowl eligible along with Sac State in the 2026 season. That's huge. Not just because, great, you get to go play in a bowl game. That's sweet and sexy. But what it also means is you're eligible for the college football playoffs, which is a long shot, but we'll get to that in a second, and the conference championship. It just means the players have a lot more to play for. I'm incredibly happy that happened. Not just for the university as a whole, but really for the players that will be there next year. And it won't be seen as like a dud or a lost season for those guys, which is cool. In terms of expectations that NDSU's had over the last week, Brett McMurphy put them in the college football playoffs. I'm a North Dakota State fan. College football playoffs sounds like a fever dream. I'd love to see it happen. But yeah, that's a take. That's a take. The schedule is not remarkably easy either. They play the best teams in the conference on the road. What I'll tell the Mountain West is, like, if we make the playoffs this year, watch out. Watch out. But overall, very happy. We also can now unlock, like, TV revenue from the Mountain West if we do make the Mountain West Conference Championship game. We, like, unlock slightly more, slightly quicker. And same thing with college football playoffs. If we make college football playoffs, we unlock college football playoff TV revenue, which is an absolutely huge deal for NDSU. So great news on the NDSU front. That's all I got for you for this first episode. Let me know the good, the bad, the ugly, if I'm an idiot or if you love listening to me talk. I will be dropping, it should be on the screen right now. It will tell you to subscribe, and it'll also show you my TikTok. I go live on TikTok pretty much every day. You can go support me on there, and if you have any questions from this show, go on there, drop a follow. It should notify you when I'm live. And then when I'm live, you can go pick my brain about how much I hate your favorite team. If you guys are new here, I hope you guys have a God-blessed night. Subscribe, leave a like, and let me know what you guys think.